ese hombre holding up the bottle. Look a little closer, cigar and Moscato. An actor in improv coming from Chicago. Auto, make way for Paul Vato. Pablo,
Woo, woo, woo. We can go horizontal like filmmakers, or we can go up and down like TikTokers. What are you busting open? What kind of packs you got there?
These are some Garbage Pail Kids. I got real into opening sports cards during the pandemic, as many people did, and it became a real financial problem for me. And then it turned out that all I wanted to do was open stuff. So now I just go to the card store and I go, what do you guys got? That's like, so a box of like NBA cards is like $1,200, $1,500. It's 70. So it's like nicotine gum.
What a great idea. Have you pulled anything out of there that you're like, is there any value to the Garbage Pail Kids?
I don't think there's any Garbage Pail. We call them hits. I don't think there's any hits in the Garbage Pail Kids. Yeah. There's a couple that have these green borders on them, which I'm assuming is maybe like a little bit more of a limited print.
Sure.
But I'm not sure. I haven't seen anything that's wowed me yet.
You really do have an addiction there, Joe. I'm sorry to say. I used to go through that. I just remembered one of the best deals I ever got. I went to a store, like it was a big store, whether it was a Target, maybe even before Target. And this was back in the 1900s. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to. And the packs at the time were maybe $3 a piece. So they were probably like that. You know,
yeah.
Was there 30 packs to a box, I'm guessing?
This box has 24 packs.
So I think it used to be about the same thing. And I'm like, so I'm like, you know what? I'll buy one box. I take it up to the counter. She rings it up. She goes, $3, please. And I go, I'm sorry. She goes, $3 for the whole box. They had mislabeled them. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go buy some more.
Oh shit.
So I think I must have bought a gross. I must have bought 12 boxes. I took the whole box of boxes. And you know, now I feel bad for doing it, but it was from a big corporate store, so I think you would be proud. And that was my best deal with these trading cards. And I can't remember if they were football or baseball or whatever they were, but I really used to be into that as well, ripping the packs. And is that what they're called? What do you call it? Ripping packs?
Ripping, yeah, we call it ripping. They call it breaking also. Like if you're going to break a whole box of packs, it's called breaking. Right. But yeah, it depends when in the 90s you got those. Basically what happened was when I was a kid, my dad got a little obsessed with baseball cards too. And then what happened was those years, they just got overprinted so much that they're actually almost totally worthless. Most of the cards from the 90s. There's only like a few cards that are worth anything at all. But they figured out how to make things more rare and scarce with all these short prints and gold labels and autographs. To the big deal now.
Wonderful. I'll have to go look and see. I'm sure that maybe my mom still has them. I doubt it. But I know I have some here that were like Magic the Gathering, Star Wars cards.
Now like stuff from that area of Magic and Star Wars actually has retained its value a little bit more. So Magic especially.
Oh, wonderful. I'll have to go through my I've got a big binder, maybe this thick with just cards and cards and cards. So, you know, it's going to take
time. Pokemon too, Paul, if you happen, I know that Pokemon was a little, you know, after your time as far as, you know, TV consumption. But if you happen to be at Target one day in 1996 and bought some fucking original Pokemon cards, those are pretty expensive now too.
I just met through a friend, Jason Page, I think is his name. And he sang the original theme song to Pokemon, and he's doing a lot of, you know, signings and busting packs open. And he was here in Vegas yesterday or day before, and I meant to go pay him a visit on Sunday, and I didn't get to it. But he hits the Comic-Cons, and he does pretty well for himself with these packs. You gotta get your own trading. Do you have one? Are you on any of these cards?
I don't have one yet. There's like a couple people in the poker world who have had them. Justin Bonomo, I think, has a Topps card. Phil Hellmuth, I'm almost positive, has had at least one or two cards over the years. There's like a couple of brands now that do. There's a brand of Topps called Allen and Ginter that does like, it's mostly baseball, but there's also like fishermen and scientists and surfers. And so I think that's the one Bonomo may have ended up in.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Well, for those of you that are just joining us, welcome, and thank you guys so much for being here. Thanks for joining us if you joined us for both shows, which it was kind of funny that the theme continued because it kind of what ties it all in together is MADtv, where I met you and where I met Uncle Chris Cluse. So thank you guys for being here. My guest today is Joe Stapleton. You might also know him as Stapes, and he does color commentary in the world of poker. And as Joe likes to say, I don't want to ruin your joke, but he's super famous to about 3,000 people. Anyone in the poker world that I've ever met, even casually playing, I mentioned Joe's name, they're like, yes, they get very excited so thank you, Joe, for taking time from your busy schedule to be here and to do this interview.
A pleasure. I love podcasts. It really makes me happy to be able to like tell a story. It's hard to tell a story on Twitter. It's hard to tell a story, in a Instagram post. With podcasting, you really get to the heart of it all.
Sure. Well, I'm sorry, Joe, but that's all the time that just kidding. That's another podcast that I do where I spend 2 minutes with a celebrity and I basically talk about myself. And then when they get to their, I cut them off. So, but that's a different podcast. And I appreciate that you took the time to do that one as well. So
I appreciate that people just, still go to the effort to like make a joke like that. I can't, like, I look at Twitter now and I'm just like, I don't even tweet jokes anymore. It's all shilling about podcasts or stand up or whatever. Cause I'm like, man, putting stuff out there, like the gratification you get from it just isn't commensurate with the amount of like abuse you get, like just the amount of effort you have to put in, like just for putting yourself out there. And then you like go to the effort you did and do 40 episodes of like a 90-second podcast where you cut off your guest every time. And it's like a hilarious meta joke. And it gets like whatever, let's say it gets 5,000 views, 10,000 views. And then some like mildly attractive mom lip syncs while she's making pancakes and it gets like 18 million views. And you're just like, why bother? So thank you for bothering, Paul.
Oh, thank you, Joe. And it started out just as a contest that Rode, RODE, with that funny line through the O that those foreigners use. And it was a contest of 1 to 2 minute podcast. And I just thought, well, what would be funny? And it was all last minute. I almost didn't even submit it because I forget, it's from Australia. So they're like, I don't know, 3 weeks in the future or whatever. Their fucking time zone worked. And, but I got, and it worked. And so I want to thank you though, for taking the time to do that. And you have a podcast as well. What's maybe at least we can talk about that a little bit. And then,
I have an award-winning podcast. We won Best Poker Podcast this year at the Global Poker Awards. And it's called Poker. Thank you. It's called Poker in the Ears. And it's just sort of like a weekly behind the scenes of what goes on at Poker Stars. So, if we are in Prague that week, it'll be, what happened in Prague? If we're doing the Spring Championship Online Poker, what's going on in Spring Championship Online Poker? A lot of movie and TV talk. James and I, it's me and James Hardigan. James and I, big movie TV fans. So it's like a poker and pop culture podcast, quick hit, in and out every week, like an hour and 10 minutes. Usually we tend to interview more like poker celebrities than poker players, which is kind of fun. Thanks for the plug.
No, of course, because it's such an entertaining podcast, and it's informational, but it's also so very entertaining.
Thanks, Paul.
Who would you consider, poker celebrities versus? Is it more like celebrities that happen to play poker, or just be in the poker world, like I don't know, your Ray Romanos and things like that?
Yeah, exactly. So basically over the last couple of years, if there isn't something Stars specific for us to cover, we were like, well, what can we make the show about that's kind of evergreen? Like during a pandemic, we weren't doing a lot of stuff. There wasn't a lot of Stars business to cover. So we kind of leaned into, hey, like Michael Cera is a celebrity and he plays poker. I know it because he plays in my home game. Like we play on Zoom every week. Let's have Michael Cera on the show. Let's have Michael Ian Black on the show. Let's have Aaron Sorkin on the show. Aaron had directed Molly's game, written and directed Molly's game. So we basically found a way to like sort of bridge the gap between like a poker podcast and an entertainment podcast. And a lot of the times the two things are completely unrelated, but they are related and whenever we can. So, we try to do a mix between like interviewing the guy that just won $1 million online, but also like, oh, hey, for example, we would have had him eventually, God rest his soul, but like Willie Garson is like a friend of mine. Like he loves poker and he's an interesting person to talk to. So we kind of try to weave between those two worlds.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I mean, just your journey we could start way earlier, where you're from, where you were raised and all that, how you wound up in Hollywood. But, our connection started at MADtv, same with Chris Cluse, whom I just interviewed. And thank you for coming up and saying hi to him. He's such a funny guy. And it's very interesting what you have to say about him, how he was one of the ones to reach out to you and whatnot. So that's wonderful that he that it's good to know that he's such a good guy like that, because what were you doing at MADtv? I remember you were working with the scripts and things like that.
Yeah, so I moved to LA because I wanted to be a comedian, and I didn't know what that meant. I didn't do stand up, I didn't do improv. I kind of was like just sort of a funny person, and I think that that's not that uncommon for people who move to LA. They know what they want to do, but they don't know how to do it. Or as Chris said before, like I was actually kind of shy, which was it's a very difficult thing to overcome. So I got a job at MADtv as a production assistant. I was the year you met me, Paul, I was a runner. I was getting coffee. I was making copies, yada, yada. And I was very shy, even about sort of making connections. So Paul, I've known you almost longer than I haven't known you, if that makes sense. I met you when I was 20 years old. I got my job at MADtv when I was 20 years old. And just like in the case of Chris Cluse, I didn't really know who Paul was, except for that he was friends with like the cast. Like, so whoever he was like pretty important. And Paul was like a super nice, friendly dude that sort of bridged the gap. Yeah, like bridged the gap a lot of the time between like the little people and the big people, because Paul was like, no, if I'm having a party, everybody's invited. Not just Keegan-Michael Key and Ike Barinholtz, but Joe Stapleton was getting invited too. And now all of a sudden I am at a party with the cast and Paul Vato. So, I kind of always looked up to you for just being a part of that scene. You're just everybody's buddy.
Wow. Thank you, man. Wow. So, I forget about that sometimes, but I remember, you're probably talking about our parties over at Smoke and Mirrors, which was an old ice cream factory.
So wait, can I tell this story? Do you know how sometimes you have like a memory and you're like not sure if you remember it the correct way or if you just like told the legend of something? So
sure.
Did you used to throw parties in this big loft space, but to get there, you had to walk through a taco stand, right? You had to like go inside a taco stand, walk past the counter, and then go out the back door, and that's where your shit was, right?
Correct.
Sometimes I'm like, was that real? But it was.
It was on the corner, and I recently drove by there when I was in LA. I was on the corner of Hollywood and Kenmore, and I think that it might be a different type of restaurant now, but it was and it was, you were going through the business, but you were going through their patio. It's LA, so a lot of people outdoor. So you would have to know that it was back there, and it was, the walls were concrete, so it was silent. There was a nightclub that was always getting busted a block away, but it was so insulated because it used to be an old ice cream factory, and so there were freezers, walk-in refrigerators. That was one of my bedroom was in.
That's a lot of insulation.
That's a lot of insulation, and lots of creep factor, because a woman wakes up in the morning. She's like, I'm already in a fucking fridge. Like, what's going on?
So there was that. And then, Paul, there was the fact that I've dined out for years, that the cast of MADtv was at my 21st birthday. You probably don't even remember this, but I turned 21 years old and I went to Vegas, and you were there with Ike and Bobby Lee and Josh Myers and Mo Collins. And you guys were like, oh, wait, it's Stapes' birthday, or Joe Stapleton, whatever you guys called me at the time. it's Joe's birthday, and me and my two friends from high school got to fucking party with the cast of MADtv for my 21st birthday, and you were a part of that too. So, and that's a story I've told for years and years and years. And speaking of, in the last episode, Chris brought up Mayim Bialik, who was in Blossom, and Michael Stoyanov was at my birthday also. I don't know who was friends with him or how, is that you? He's your boy?
I mean, he was really Ike's boy.
Okay.
I mean, they had already known each other from Chicago because he'd been in Chicago. And so I just kind of became friends with Mike. And then I found out that that's the guy from Blossom. Like, yeah. I didn't even, because it was, again, like Pokemon. It was a little bit, I was already a little bit older. I owned a business. I didn't have time to watch television in the 90s or whenever, those shows were on. But then I was like, oh, of course he looks familiar. That's Mike Stoyanov. So he and I kind of, had already been palling around. But I absolutely 100% remember that trip to Vegas with all those guys. We had some of the best laughs on that trip. And I remember, I think it was Stoyanov that we're playing blackjack. And every time that we would win a hand, he'd yell at the casino, like, "How do you guys stay in business?" Like,
no, he used to
losers. Or I mean, you might remember
that was part of it. He was like, every time the dealer would bust some blackjack, and he'd be like, "You're terrible! Oh my god, you're the worst." But then him and Ike were doing this bit where, that I think Ocean's 11 had just come out, and there's like that factor in Ocean's 11 that like casinos have to have enough cash on hand to be able to cash out every single chip. And so every time Mike or Ike would bet $100, $25, they'd look at the pit boss and go, "Can you guys cover this? Is this back there? Do you guys have this? Is this covered? If we bet this, do you guys have this?" And it would be like a $200 bet. They'd be like, "You guys good for this? Is that there? Can I see the cage? Can I see the cash?"
I still kind of use that joke at sportsbooks. So, I became friends with Derek Stevens, who owns the D Casino and now Circa and the Golden Gate. So he bets big. Obviously he can't bet at his own property, but sportsbook, he'll go. We'll place the bets over at the Golden Nugget or wherever. And, he's placing, $50, $60, $70, $100,000 bets and winning and losing, so I'll just do, I forget what it was, like 1% or a tenth of a percent, whatever he bets. I'm gonna do the same thing, but I'm going to bet, 1% of whatever he's betting.
He bets 100,000, you bet 100.
Correct.
Yeah.
So whatever that number is, a tenth of a percent or whatever that is, or 1%, then that's what I'm betting. And it works because I get to have fun, and I don't, because I don't get the $350 million a year to play with. So, not to put his business out there, but I would do the same thing where
this just in: casino owners do well.
Yeah, this is from even before the casino business. This guy, so he, and I remember he was cashing out, and it was like 20,000 loser, 30,000 loser, 40, and then all of a sudden he gets to the big one, 60,000 winner, 50,000 winner, 100,000 winner, and then I walk up with my tickets worth whatever, a couple $100, $300, and I'm like, "Can you guys cover this?" They first look at it and they're like, yeah. So it's kind of that same dumb joke. Now from that trip, I also remember, and I don't know if that's the one where Jay Johnston. Did you remember Jay Johnston from Mr. Show? I think he might have joined us on that trip as well. I don't remember because there were so many.
I think I left. I think you guys stayed on, and if he did, it was after because I think I would have remembered that. I do have photos from that week. I think I might have sent you some a while ago. Bobby Lee. I used to dine out on this story. Everyone went to the steakhouse at the Monte Carlo for my birthday dinner, and Bobby goes, "Come on, let's go," and he walks away from the table with me. And he goes, "You do drugs?" I go, "No." He goes, "You drink?" "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, come on, we're doing a shot for your birthday." And he goes up to the bartender. He goes, "What's the most expensive shot of tequila that you have?" And the guy's like, "Oh," he brings it. He's like, "This is called the Worm. It's like a worm shaped bottle like this. This is $110 a shot." And he goes, "Okay, I'll have 2 of those." And he goes, "Do you like to chase it with something?" I go, "Yeah, Miller Lite." He goes, "Okay." Now, mind you, I've been 21 for like a day at this point. He goes, "Okay, 2 Miller Lights." And the bartender brings all the shots, Miller Lights, and the total bill's like $210, and Bobby just gives him $300. He's like, okay, keep the change. So I'm just like, this is crazy. I've never even seen this amount of money in my life. And I'm like, okay, buddy, cheers. And he's like, no, I don't drink. These are both for you.
Yeah.
And so I down the 2 shots, grab the Miller Lite. I remember like sort of puking them up a little bit on the walk back to the table, but thinking to myself, okay, so at the time I was making $475 a week, which was the most money I'd ever even heard of a person making. And then Bobby just spent $300 on 2 shots and 2 beers. I was just like mind blown. It was like country boy hanging out with celebrities in Las Vegas. Like, and now that story, given that I work in the poker world and the amount of money that I see just sort of thrown around on a weekly basis, that wouldn't even move the needle really for me at this point. But at the time, for like a solid 10 years, that was all I could talk about.
It's a great story. And I was curious because I was like, Bobby, at the time, I knew he didn't drink, because he'd been sober since he was a teenager, I think, because of how hard he hit it. And I'm pretty sure there was that same trip. There's so many things that happened on this trip, but we get there. I think Rich Tellerico and I probably drove in with Ike, because I remember that we pulled up to Ike's place, and Rich calls him and he's like, Ike, there's 2 very bad men outside waiting for you. So Ike, leaves his place, Club Curson, where we used to go hang out, and jumps in the car, and then we're like, oh, we're gonna get hookers, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, and Ike goes, all I know is I'm not gonna pay a lot for this muffler. So I don't know why that line has always killed me. I don't know, but I'm not gonna pay a lot for this muffler. We're like, no, we won't have to. We'll talk girls into sleeping with us, whatever. So we drove there, and then I think the first person we see is Bobby Lee, and he's in a full blown panic attack. He's like, because I think he was doing pills at the time too, though. Yeah, because he had a whole thing of pills that I think he accidentally gave Ike Viagra or something. I forget what happened. But Bobby Lee's like, I can't breathe. I'm so thirsty. I can't breathe. And Rich is like, what do you need, Bobby? He goes, I need some water. I need some water. So Rich goes up to the bar at Monte Carlo, right? That's where we were.
You guys were staying at Monte Carlo, yeah.
Yeah, we were at Monte Carlo. So he goes up to the bar, and Rich is like, and Rich is so nice. He goes, he was kind of aware of who was there, and he goes 1, 2, 3. So he goes, 7 bottles of water, please, because he didn't want to just get 1 bottle. So he gets 7, and then the guy's like, $40-some or whatever it was, and Rich is like, here's 50, keep the change. So he comes back with these 7 bottles, and he starts handing them out. Well, first he goes right to Bobby. He goes, here you go, Bobby. And Bobby takes it, and I think maybe even I was helping him. No. I think he had them all. So I remember that we're all standing there, and Bobby takes the lid off and takes the world's tiniest sip, puts the fucking lid back on, and hands it back to Rich and goes, thank you. And Rich is like, and then Rich is trying to hand these to people. And by the time he got to me, everyone's like, no, I'm good. I don't need water. I'm not good. I got to do the same thing. I'm like, no, man, I'm fine. So here's fucking Rich walking around with 8 bottles of water. But the funniest thing was Bobby just going, and he really thought he needed it. He took and just goes, I'm good now. Rich is like, what the? He just spent $50 on nothing, And again, I think like now that now if you're around the poker world, it's like pennies to these people that are losing $1 million or playing for $1 million or buying in for 100,000, whatever. I mean, it's crazy the way the money flows in Vegas and in the poker world. But man, those are some great stories. I remember, I think Stoyanov was there. It was him and Josh Myers.
Yeah.
Josh was getting tired. He was falling asleep. He was at the table. We were at the roulette table, and he would just take his chips and kind of like throw them on the table and then spread them out and then kind of like pass back out. But I think he was doing more. He'd throw them and then like rub the table with the chips, and then wherever they kind of landed, that's where. And he kept hitting so much so that the pit boss, or floor managers as they're called now, like started like looking under the table, and it must have been because of Ocean's 11. He's looking under the table like, what are these guys doing? And then Josh would fall asleep, and the second the thing would hit, he'd wake up, get his money, spread it out again like a maniac when he could, as soon as he was allowed to. And we did that, I don't know, for an hour, 45 minutes, whatever. And it was just, they thought we were up to something. I think that's also when, so now when Jay Johnson showed up, they I think all went to a strip club, and Jay was wearing like the Hunter S. Thompson, that see-through hat, the visor, like shorts, and Rich and I were playing craps, and we were on probably one of the best heaters I've ever been on. So much so that we were pretending that our arm was encased like in a golden case, and every time we have to like take it out. Like I would go like this and take his arm out of the case, and the people were like, "Come on!" But Rich probably made a couple thousand, and I didn't bet as much on myself, so I probably made half that.
Do you remember? I remember it was either yours or Rich's craps bit, which was, "Come on, 7. Come on, 7."
Come on, 7. Come on, 7. 7-11. Yeah. There was also like, you want some peanuts?
Oh, I don't.
Yeah, come on. Thank you. Thanks for reminding. There's so many good bits that we did in that trip. So thank you. It was great to have you there, and I'm glad. Now, did you just happen to randomly be going there for your birthday, and then we were going, or did we just all go like, let's go because Stapes? It's
I think I got lucky that you guys were already going, and then once you found out it was my birthday and that I was going, people were like, absolutely, let's go. Like, let's all hang out. It was. The cast was like that. Ike specifically, Mo Collins was on that trip also. Mo's the first person to ever invite me into her home. We would make these script deliveries late at night, and she was like, "Do you want to come in?" And I was like, "No, of course not, but thank you." And that was just like a nice thing for her to offer. Bobby obviously can be, when Bobby's, I don't know what Bobby's like now because I haven't really had a conversation with him in 15 years. But Bobby back then could be the most generous person and like just go above and beyond for people, and like has this really gigantic heart. If you can get through the hard candy shell, which I think is thicker now than it was then, but he's the one, he forced me to do stand-up comedy for the first time.
He's very inspirational when it comes to that, because I would talk to him about that, and he said, you really haven't lived till you've actually bombed on stage, and I don't know what advice he's given you, but because he was always, he'd always come off stage and go like, "Oh, that was horrible," and so I would agree with him a lot of times, just because I was like, that's not true. You can't believe that, because he was such a brilliant stand-up, and he always has been. I never saw him bomb. But he was always like, "That was horrible. I did horrible." And I was like, "Bobby, you killed it." So I would just get tired and go like, "Yeah, that was pretty bad."
I didn't spend that much time with him, so I don't know what he reacted. But he did seem like a self-loather, as many comedians are. It's better. That's why comedy and poker are like very similar, because you'll meet a lot of poker players who kind of feel the same way, where they'll go, I played it so bad, except the opposite, right? Where it's like comedians who think they killed no matter what. That's what poker players are like. When you're like, dude, you definitely did not kill. Like, maybe that was okay, but man, what world are we living in?
Right. And that always worries me about doing stand-up, because it's like, I don't want to have laughing ears. We're like, "Oh, I killed it. Did you hear everybody?" You're like, no one was laughing. Like, it was horrible.
Most comedians, if anything, go the other way.
Yeah.
Like Bobby does. Bobby being like, "Oh, that sucked. I sucked." And then really it was probably at worst fine, and at best pretty good.
It was never that. It was always kill. I never saw him not kill. He was just, and so I was happy to then see him become also great at sketch and acting, because I know it was a little rough for him at first, because he came from the world of stand-up, and then he's dealing with people like like Ike and Josh, and these people that come from a sketch background that aren't too nice to people that don't come out of Chicago and that training, but through no fault of Bobby's, but he became, I think, a great sketch artist and actor and whatnot. He's the first guy to take me down to Tijuana. So,
oh my goodness,
because I had a car. I think.
Oh my God! Wait, okay, so wait, hold on a second.
Did you ever go with us? No,
so I don't know what the laws are or what's public or not. So all I say is, I remember one other story about that Vegas trip, and I believe it was that you and a member of the cast drove out to Pahrump
No. I would tell you though.
Yeah. A member of the cast told me a story about driving out to Pahrump, which is where the bunny ranch is.
Sure.
And when he got there was only like one or two girls working. And he wasn't that into them. So they went and, because it was like 5 a.m, and then they went and woke all of the girls up and lined them up for him to choose. And he said that none of them were very physically attractive, specifically like their bodies. He wasn't into it. He said, except for one girl that had a very, very attractive body, but her face had been very badly burned. And so he had to make a decision between, and he's like telling this story to the entire production office. Like, this is not like something he told me in confidence. This is him like announcing this story to everyone at work. And I think he ended up choosing the second of the two options, but this was like an overshare of epic proportions that I believe also happened on that Vegas trip.
It very well could have, and I've never heard that story. I wish and I would assume that was Mike McDonald. No, I'm kidding. You don't have to tell me who it is either later, unless you want to share it, because he told it to everybody. But I know I was not involved in that, and I wish I would have. I mean, if it was at 5 a.m, I mean, we were probably doing our own thing, and then they
do that.
But that is a great story. I mean, what a choice!
What a choice!
So now I remember. Are you the one that invited me to that party? Now that we're revealing things, by USC, where it was a bunch of like young USC girls, and it was maybe Valentine's Day, like early on. Was that you?
Yeah. So I believe you're conflating two parties. I think the week prior, I invited you to a party at USC, and you and I ended up like getting along really well with like some 20-year-old girls, which for me really wasn't that big of a deal. I don't know how old you are, Paul. I was 21 at the time, right? So it was definitely age appropriate for me to be there, although I'm weird talking about it now. But then the next week, I had a Valentine's Day party at my apartment, and yes, somehow most of the cast showed up. Ike came, Josh Myers came, you were there. I can't remember if Mo Collins came or not, but like a whole bunch of people I was never expecting to come, and the girls we had met at the USC party were also there. And I definitely have a ton of photos from that night eventually too. At some point. Oh, I remember. Here's a funny story about that night. Josh Myers was there, and Seth Meyers, obviously Josh's brother, is on SNL at the time, and Jennifer Garner was hosting the show, and Josh needed to go in and watch SNL in my bedroom while this party was going on, and there was a sketch where Jennifer Garner makes out with Seth, and Josh stormed out of my bedroom, slammed the door, went downstairs, was furious that his brother got to kiss Jennifer Garner.
Why would he be pissed? I'd be so happy for him.
I know, he was livid. He was so mad about it.
Oh my God. So yes, I kind of am confusing these two, conflating these two stories. But because I remember that then, because I have some photos somewhere also, because I remember it was, I not making sounds like such a hard word and maybe inappropriate, but I was encouraging them to make out and kiss each other. And I remember there was one photo of me like this with these two girls making out in front of me. And I had a glass of wine and maybe a cigar in the other hand.
I remember this photo. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm still, friends with, now this girl's married and I think, and has a kid.
Oh, you've kept in touch with them?
Not well. Every now and then I'll get a message, through Facebook or Instagram. But as time has gone by,
okay.
But the main one that she and I this is horrible because I was a little bit older than you guys. But I thought You know what? We actually went to Vegas for her. I'd hate to say it, for her 18th birthday. But let's back up. Because at that party, I was, we were getting very chummy and very pally, and it was Josh Myers, that do-gooder, who comes up to me, and I thanked him. He goes, Vato, he goes, you know that those girls are 17, right? And I go, what? And then I go, but they're like USC. Then I remembered, I was like, well, fuck, I went to college, I was 17. I'm like, oh, okay. So that's why when it was kind of like hands off, nothing's going to happen. But then the following week, I'm at Beauty Bar. My friend owned Beauty Bar in Star Shoes, Johnny Nixon. I'm at Star Shoes, and maybe it was the day that Bjork was spinning there. She was hitting play on her laptop and, a DJ. Right. And who do I run into but this group of girls, and the girl obviously that I liked. And then I was like, well, how can she be 17? I go, Josh was lying to me, when she's in a bar in Hollywood. But I was still like very, no, let's not, But then she goes, I want to go to Vegas for my 18th birthday. I'm like, there it is. Yep. So we ended up going to Vegas, and nothing untoward happened. I was very respectful. But I do remember then, and she was maybe trying to marry another girl at the time or something. She's, kids, they're so gender fluid. Yeah, but but I thanked Josh for saving. Not that anything would have happened, but you got us into that situation. So I feel like you threw better parties than we did.
Yeah, but youth basically, and not the thing is, I was too young to care about any of that or to know that any of that was like an issue at all. I was barely not a teenager myself, so. Now if I threw a party, you got to worry about so much stuff. I mean, we literally threw a party with 2 apartments in the same complex and just left both doors open. And it was like a connecting party. Like, who can do that after age 30?
Right. No. I mean, no. And I remember being there. God, it's so long ago, but sorry, I just froze. I remember being there and great times. Great times at your parties and the MADtv times. So where did you move from? Where did you grow up? I mean, just to quickly touch base, because you said you country boy.
No, it's not. I mean, I'm from Albany, New York, which is a city. It wasn't really the country, but just sort of when people ask me to describe Albany, I say it's like Alabama with snow. It's just, anytime you're not in a major metropolitan area in the U.S., I think people are pretty similar, even though it's New York, it's a lot of trees, it's a lot of chainsaws, it's a lot of country music. It's America. It's the heartland of America. So that's kind of where I'm from. So all this stuff about moving, to LA, it really has, shaped who I am over the years too, because I was without getting too political, I was a pretty conservative person when I moved to Los Angeles, because I was raised to believe work hard and good things will happen for you. And everyone in this country starts off at a level playing field. And that's the best thing about it. And as long as you are a good person and work hard, all your dreams will come true. And I didn't realize that is true for some people, and it's not true for some people. And there are some people it's more true for, and some people it's less true for. But I didn't know that, because all I knew was me and my life and what I saw around me, and didn't understand that like lots of other different situations, exist in the world besides me and what I saw in my hometown. And so, the time I spent in LA really showed me that there is a pretty big cultural difference between a lot of the places we come from.
And you've been pretty vocal about that on social media and whatnot. So do you think that that's affected you either negatively or I mean?
Yeah, I mean, look, I know for a fact that my bottom line that I probably would have made more money over the years in my various endeavors if I'd stayed quiet about certain things, if I had not been vocal, if I had just stuck to comedy or stuck to poker. I absolutely for a fact know that I would be that I would have worked more when I was freelancing. Luckily now I work for a company that really doesn't bother me about what I say when it comes to politics. And for the most part, I think they're on board with most of, we have similar beliefs. This big divide we have in this country isn't 50-50. It's something like 65-35 at best. It's more like, 70-30. It's not a big group of people that, that all believe a certain ideology. And so, my company is like, just don't go crazy with it. But like, if you want to speak out on what you think is right, like they don't fuck with me. And I appreciate that very much. When it comes to matters of our industry, they have a little bit more of an opinion. But if I like want to retweet something for trans rights, like they're not going to bug me about that. And I appreciate that.
Wonderful. No, that's great because, a lot of times as a business owner and I have to be careful. And, of course, I'm in Vegas with casino owners and they're very, right wing and
they can be conservative. Yeah.
Be very conservative, so of course they want to protect their money and the things that they've, worked hard for. You can't take that away from them. But so thank you, on our behalf sometimes that we can't say something which we should, I should say, well, who cares?
Dude, listen, I actually, I am in a position of privilege in many ways. And one of them is that my, sorry, just weird text message coming through. One of the drawbacks of doing it on my phone. Where was I, Paul? Sorry.
No, that you have this ability or maybe this.
Oh, right. The privilege to be able to not only just, the white male straight privilege I have. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the privilege that like my business, my livelihood, I don't have to choose between my livelihood and being able to say something. I don't have to choose between feeding my family and being able to say something. And for those people who err on the side of staying in business and who err on the side of want to be able to put on the food on the table for like me and my family, I don't fault those people. We can like really demonize people like, there's like a lot of sports guys, right? For example, it's probably the best example. Sports guys that I wish would use their platforms and speak out on some of this stuff, but they don't because, it's going to alienate a huge portion of their audience. And I get that. And that's okay. And I do kind of wish people would do that. But when they don't, like, you can't blame somebody for not wanting to torch their entire career, for something that you think is right.
Right. Of course. Well, it's wonderful that the company that you work for or work with, PokerStars, affords you that and support you and allow you to do that. That's wonderful. How long have you been representing PokerStars?
I started PokerStars, gave me my big break on television in 2009, and I was freelancing for like the next 10 years or so, but mostly worked for them. I've done thousands of hours of poker commentary for PokerStars, hundreds of episodes of TV shows, online, live, all over the world, 3 continents. I wish Panama counted South America because then it would be 4. But unfortunately, it's still Central America, which is North America, which is annoying. Anyway, so yeah, I've been with them for a really, really long time, and it's been cool because they're the Yankees of online poker. They just run a classy organization and have cast a wide net and put out a great product. And so I've been lucky to be able to hang with those guys for so long and to not have had a real job since basically 2009. That's fucking crazy.
Amazing. No, and well, that is your job. And it's really refreshing. Every time that I tune into a poker stream or anything, on YouTube or anywhere, 90% of the time it's your voice. I mean, it's you doing commentary. So that's amazing how many thousands of hours you've done. Now, did that lead for you to do stand up? And did you get that? Did you start doing that when you were, because how long did you live in London?
Yeah. So remember when I said I moved to LA to be a comedian and didn't really like do anything? So Bobby made me do stand up like in 2003 or 4. And then I didn't do it again till like 2012. I was painfully shy. I took a couple of improv courses, but I used to get really sick to my stomach. even the thought of going to do stand up again made me terrified, but beyond belief. So I kind of just like was a poser, was like a comedian poser for a long time. And when I got my job in the big game in 2009, no, I hadn't done stand up yet. And basically what happened, I mean, other than that one time, and basically what has happened was when Black Friday happened and online poker got banned in the USA, officially banned, I basically ended up, cut to 18 months later, ended up moving to England because my company, as I said, Poker Stars, has always really done right by me. And they said, hey, we're out of America, but we still broadcast in English like in a lot of the rest of the world. Do you want to come work on the European Poker Tour instead? And I said, I very much would like to stay on television. And so I moved out to England, and we were doing one episode a week, which is a lot. In TV, right? It's 52 episodes in a year. That's a ton of episodes, but it wasn't a lot of days of work for me per week. It was only like 2 days a week. So I was like, you have no excuse now. You're going to go out and do stand-up comedy. You're going to go out 2 or 3 nights a week and get up on stage. And I did it. And I forced myself into doing that. And now I am an okay stand-up comedian. We're talking 10 years later. I've had some good moments along the way. I don't think I was ever very bad at it. But now I can do that. Now I can go out and confidently. In fact, Paul, I'll get a plug in here. I'm hosting at the Brad Garrett Comedy Club, June 27th to July 3rd in Las Vegas at MGM Grand. So if anybody wants to come out for that, I'll buy you a shot.
of the most expensive tequila?
Not of the most expensive tequila. I mean, you, Paul, yes. I don't know. Tiffany, probably yes. Yeah, but that's it.
I love it. Okay, so Tiffany, you're going to have to come to Vegas with us. Who's the first person to bring you to Vegas?
I think that trip when I went on my 21st birthday was my first trip to Vegas.
I mean, to do stand-up.
Oh, to do stand-up. Well, you're the first person that got me my name on a marquee.
That's what it was. Okay. I knew it had something to do with it. And of course, I want to make a little bit more.
You got me that spot. I will say that's one of the few times that I consider, I think I've bombed maybe 5 times in my life. And I consider that night to be one of the biggest bombs I've ever had.
Really? Wow. I don't remember the bombing part, but I'm glad you came out for that. But now look at you. You're on the Strip. My goodness. I mean, that's what every comedian's dream is to be. I think on the Vegas Strip. That's one of the,
for sure. It's one of the benchmarks, right? Like, having your name on the Comedy Store, being on a certain marquee, playing the Vegas Strip. Yeah, definitely up there to be able to just say, I've been doing gigs in Vegas the last few years. We have a deal with this place called The Space, where I've been like producing my own comedy shows. And that was pure ego, by the way. I didn't realize how much work it is and how much pressure it is. I'm like kind of over that. It's my own show. But no, it's like filling the place every month. Anyway, I've been doing that for a while. But getting people to go off Strip, even though it's like a 5-minute drive from Aria, it's like, where is it? Oh, okay. And if I go, it's at MGM, that's an easy sell, right? It's being like, oh yeah, no, it's at MGM. It's like in a casino, bro.
Right, which is probably even more difficult to get to if you're in the casino next door.
Oh, for sure.
Easier to jump in an Uber and get to the Space, which is a great space. So yeah. Well, I look forward to you doing more stand up out here in Vegas, and I can help you out any way that I can.
Thanks, buddy.
I will, and I've got a meeting set up for you with the LA Comedy Club guys, with the owners.
Oh, cool.
So when you come out here, like May 20th, around that time, by all means, we'll have a little sit down, and hopefully you can do something with them as well. Yeah,
that'd be great.
Yeah. And are you promoting anything else? Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about, or what should we touch on? And I'd love to do this again, Joe, because you're so great to interview, and you brought back so many memories that I hadn't even thought of in so long. But those were some great times at MADtv, man.
I'm not big on instant nostalgia. Like if someone takes a picture of me on a night out and then wants to show me the picture right away, I'm like, I'm fucking good. I was there. I was literally there 5 seconds ago. Like I don't need to see this photo. However, these stories from MADtv back in the day, back when, when in our former lives, when we knew each other, hanging around that soundstage, those are memories I haven't touched on in a long time. So it's nice to be able to dig some of those up. Stories that I used to tell all the time that are just out of my rotation now. So yeah, good stuff there. Happy to be here, Paul. Let's see. I plugged the podcast, Poker in the Ears. You can get that anywhere you get podcasts, like iTunes.
Which is a great name. I'm a big fan of puns. At Binion's Casino, we had that. And obviously, it's based on that old joke: liquor up front, poker in the rear. And it was literally the bar was right there outside on Fremont Street, and then the poker room when we had one was straight back. So the sign was factual: liquor up front, poker in the rear. So poker in the ears is a great name for, and that's exactly what you're doing. You're putting poker in people's ears. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. So look at this, right? We got a whole bunch of people, or these spam girl accounts that are joining us right now, right as we're wrapping things up.
No, wait, are we wrapping? No. These are all, that's the nice thing about Fireside is that it's actually real people. And if you have time, I don't know I don't know what your time is like, but if you want to invite anyone up, or we can they can come and ask questions, or they can flirt with us, whatever.
I wasn't sure what your plan is for this show, but please don't let me. I'm up for whatever.
Wonderful. Would you be up for answering a few questions? And I realized I never put anything in the fortune cookie, that scrolls. We can always add your website. We can do things like that.
Oh, that's okay. We're all right.
Yeah. Am I crooked? Am I right? Or is
I'm not worried about you. I was just trying. There is something in the fortune cookie. We have so much in common. It's a shame they'll never meet. Hold on. Parallel lines. Parallel lines have so much in common. It's a shame they'll never meet. Okay.
Funny. All right. Witty. So that's usually what happens. So I might have to step away for a second and get my phone charger because I forgot that I did it.
Let me ask you a question before you do that.
Yeah, buddy.
What are the chances that I'm going to agree to answer audience questions and you're going to open up to the floor and no one's going to ask me a question? I'm going to look like a fucking dick.
Well, maybe there's one person that likes poker.
Because I don't like looking like a fucking dick.
Well, too late, Joe. By you agreeing to be here. Well, if anyone would like to come up, raise your hand, and I think I know how to do this. We'll bring you up, or if you have any questions, you can drop them in the comments. I think
I'll tell you what.
Yeah,
Paul, you go get your charger. If you guys have a question, indicate that in some way while Paul's gone. But when he comes back, if there's no one that's asked anything, we're going to pretend like this never happened.
Well, here, let me make you a producer, because then this way you can invite people up. I think that's how this works. I feel like Uncle Chris that I just interviewed. I'm like, I'm 70 years old. Let's see, make them a producer. So now you have full production control. Okay. I'm going to turn the camera off while
my dream come true.
Turn off
have production control over a Paul Vato.
A Paul Vato production. Let me go get my charger.
Oh, here we go. We've got all these. I'm going to react to the show. How about that? I'm giving this show a thumbs up. Send. Oh, look at that. So yeah, as soon as we started talking about bringing people on stage, Roxanne left, Stephanie left. We still got Tana though. Tana and Tasha. All right, Tiffany. I don't think anyone's putting a question through, so it's all good.
Let me
add speakers. Should I just invite everyone and see what happens?
Sure. If you want to force them to ask you questions.
No, you know what? I don't. This is what I like about stand-up comedy is, it's really one-way communication. The only thing I want coming the other way is praise. I don't really want to talk to people. I want to talk at people.
Exactly. What's your website? Let me add it to where the fortune cookie is.
My website's embarrassingly bad, but I guess I'll give it out. Actually, this is a funny story. So I couldn't get Stapes.com because it's, obviously like a fairly sought after website in general. So what I did was I registered Stapes.com.com. So
is that your website?
If you spell out Stapes.com and then put a .com at the end of it, yes, that should take you to my very, very bad website.
Or would you rather to send people somewhere else? Stapes.com.
Stapesfan.com, I believe, is the website. But no, I don't really. I'm just so bad at this admin. Like, I just want to make people laugh, Paul. I don't want to build a website. I don't want to learn SEO. I don't want to fucking program. I just want to make people laugh.
Right. No, well, that's the thing. I think that maybe that's what, and even nowadays, even if you get a manager or, because you and I kind of chatted about that, it's still like, oh, okay, but you still have to do all your own shit, like your own social media, your own websites, your own. So it's like, we need to maybe form some kind of company that helps stand-up comedians and
just the admin of being a stand-up comedian, like doing your plugs at the right time, like adding, just giving people information, how to get to your show. All this stuff is just very, it's just all takes away from the comedy part of it.
It really does. And like you said, all you want to do is make people laugh. I hope you don't mind. I went vertical just because.
All good.
Because I had to move it closer to my charger.
The only reason I can't be vertical is because my headphones are plugged into the bottom, and so it won't stand up.
So I hope you don't mind that I'm vertical and you're horizontal.
It's okay with me. I don't know if you might want to ask the 4.5 people who are watching.
Well, the nice thing is, though, this lives on the platform. So I'll bet if we come back in a week or two, you'll see that there have been quite a few replays.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and that's what I like about this. I'm also able to download it and then re-upload it as a proper podcast. Not that this is not a proper podcast, but as a podcast, whether it's on Anchor or whatever I use. So, it's the same thing. If you wanted a clip from this, for instance, we could always do that. Again, it's more work. So I like that it's live. Once it's done, because that's always what messes me up. It's like I'm looking for perfection, and now I've learned it's done is better than perfect, because I know that I would go through this whole thing and try to take out any of your if you had any. I don't know if you did, or mine, but I want to make my guests look great. But now that this is live, I think it's more forgiving and it lives on the platform. So, if you ever wanted to come on, I'm sure if you applied to be a content creator on the platform, they would approve you.
I think I got improved during this conversation. I got a text from them saying I was approved. So, this is a neat little concept. Like most things, I think it's cool, and I'll probably just do nothing with it. But I'm happy to come out with you every once in a while, Paul.
I love that because, maybe we can reminisce about the MADtv days and stories that we remember, because, you really jogged my memory. And you're right about that whole thing of like, hey, look, here's our photo. Like, I was just there. That's such a great joke, too. That's that or not. When's your next gig? When's your next stand-up comedy gig?
I am. It's actually on May 28th at the Space LV. High Stapes Comedy, my show, my name on it. Jocelyn Sharp, local comedian, is gonna headline that particular show. I'm gonna MC Ben Ludlow, JJ Lieberman, and Mateen Stewart. I'm bringing Mateen in from LA. Mateen's really killing it right now. Hilarious comedian. So that's gonna be on May 28th. You can get tickets at thespacelv.com, I believe is the website. That's my next gig. It's in Las Vegas.
I love it. I can't wait till you come out for that, because I'll definitely support and help promote it and whatnot. And what's next in poker? I mean, World Series of Poker is right around the corner. Do you have anything to do with that? Are you covering that, or?
I will, if anything, I'll play at the World Series of Poker a tiny bit this summer. But no, next for me, poker-wise, is we've got EPT, European Poker Tour, Monte Carlo. We haven't been in Monte Carlo in 4 years. So we are heading back there. I'm going to leave on Saturday. And May 2nd through the 7th, we'll be doing live poker coverage from Monte Carlo. So that'll be fun to be back out there, back in the live tournament world. And then after that, so it's that, then the World Series of Poker happens. Then we've got EPT Barcelona in August, and I'm doing a show in Edinburgh, a stand-up comedy show at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival this year for the first time ever. So like a 10-night run, 10 nights in Edinburgh.
That's amazing, because that's another one of those things that anyone who's in comedy needs to strive to be at, is Edinburgh at their festival.
Yeah. So. Turns out all you need to get into Edinburgh is money.
Yeah.
So
that sounded like such a Norm joke. You're doing. Turns out all you need is money.
All you need is fucking cash. That's it.
So did you rent a space and then now you're promoting it, or how does?
Yeah, I got a guy, this guy Nathan, a Scottish fan, reached out to me a couple years ago, and he was like, "Let me handle this for you. I promise I'm trustworthy, yada yada." And he more or less takes care of it for me, tells me where to send my money, and you just book a venue. I got 10 nights at 10 p.m. Right in the center of town, so it was relatively expensive, but I figure, hey, it's worth it. What are you gonna do? I'm at a point in my life where I'm not a starving artist, so I don't. It's a little shitty the way the whole Edinburgh system works like that, but I'm like, well, let's check this out. Let's see if I don't think I'm gonna have what Edinburgh likes. They want like a journey, and I specifically wrote in my act description that this is not a journey. It's like 45 minutes of dick jokes and cheap gags. So come prepared for that.
Well, I mean, but you're part of the festival, and worst is what, they don't invite you back type of a thing, or
just I don't win. I don't get well reviewed. I don't win awards or anything.
Of course,
yeah.
But if you sell tickets, I think that's the more important thing. And I would imagine then you get the tickets because you're renting out the space. Is that how that works?
I'm not legally allowed to work in the United Kingdom, so I believe someone else will be profiting off of this show. I'm not sure if it's going to be a charity yet or if I'm going to give away the tickets for free, but I might be doing this just purely as a labor of love.
Wow, wonderful. Well, same thing. I mean, we can help promote it. So just at least to get full houses and packed houses.
Thank you.
And do you have a YouTube channel, or where can people see some of your stand-up, or is it more Instagram? Or
I don't put a lot of my stand-up online, because when people come out to see me and they pay $15 for a ticket and they got a babysitter and they could be home watching Netflix or Better Call Saul, and then I want them to, when they come to see me, they haven't seen it all already on YouTube. So I have very few clips online, but I have a couple out there. They're on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/2jacksjoe, TWOJACKS, like two jacks, like a poker hand, Jacks Joe. I believe I got a couple of clips up there, but I'm getting less and less precious about putting stuff online. I just want to make sure it's the right stuff. That I'm going to end up putting most of my pandemic material online pretty soon, because I'm running out of time with that material being relevant anyway. So might as well.
Wonderful. How'd you come up with two Jacks Joe? Is it just the alliteration? I mean, because that's such a bad hand in poker. It's like I could never win with jacks. I don't know.
Oh, jacks is one of the best hands in poker, but it was because my first podcast that was of my own. Basically, me and my partner Scott Huff had a deal with a poker media company where we hosted some poker podcasts for them. But we said, hey, we want one show on your network that isn't poker. We want to do just comedy, and that was called Two Jacks in the Hole. And that was supposed to describe me and Scott. So I just created that name. Like, it was like Two Jacks Scott, Two Jacks Joe were our Gmail handles. But no, Jacks is one of the best hands, my dude.
Really? Okay. Because I always seem, but then again, I feel like my aces always get cracked anyway. So who knows? Now, you mentioned something the other day, and it's kind of stuck with me, how you learn something. You can almost learn something new every day. And I don't remember what day that was, but what's the latest thing that you've learned about poker that maybe changed the way that you think about it? Or I don't know if that's too broad of a question.
So I understand the question.
Okay, thank you.
It can't really. It's beyond my ability to re-explain it, is how complicated it is. And it's not just one thing. The way that poker theory has evolved over the last 10 years or so, 10 to 15 years, is the sort of thing where they literally have to use supercomputers to calculate the sorts of algorithms and theorems that are being applied in poker in the present day. And it takes, whatever's the hardest math problem you can think of, Paul, if you put it in your computer, how long would it take the computer to come up with an answer? A second? Under
Maybe.
a second?
I mean, yeah, when they're making 60,000 or I don't know how many computations per second. Yeah.
Sure.
Maybe the world's toughest one, would take a second. Sure.
The kinds of math problems these poker players are putting into computers take 5 minutes for it to answer, take 9 minutes for it to answer. So just imagine the complexity of these theories that are being used to even get you to a point where that's how hard the math problem is. So poker it's like chess at this point. There are infinite ways to think about the game and infinite moves that can be made at any point. It's really something how deeply, deeply intellectual it is. Having said that, there are still people that just have some kind of innate ability to play the game and could never word it in math problems or algorithms or percentages, but just play by their gut, and their gut is right a lot of the time.
Wow. How do you think somebody like Stu Unger would do in today's poker climate?
I mean, this would get me annihilated, but I think everyone really reveres Stu. I think Stu would be completely out of his depth. Stu would be out of the game. All likelihood that he just wouldn't be able to compete at today's level. But who knows? Maybe he was one of those. A lot of people who knew him at the time think he was one of those innate, low-key geniuses and maybe couldn't verbalize it, but just really knew what was going on. Maybe. Just based on the fact that almost every other person from that era has, cannot possibly compete anymore. I don't think Stu would be able to either.
Wow. No, that makes perfect sense. And something that you mentioned that you told me and really at least, kind of it made me make sense of the fact that, when I told you that I play on WSOP.com, which is legal here in Las Vegas and Nevada, and a couple other states, what you said made perfect sense, which is I'm competing with some of these players that are the best players in the country, maybe in the world, probably.
Some of the best in the world, for sure.
Some of the best in the world. So it made me feel better about, always either bubbling or getting close, but not quite making it, because, it just takes that extra little percentage or whatever, which sometimes I'm not finding. And it's because I am competing against these players. I've done better on another platform that's more of a what's it called, a sweepstakes. I don't know if I can mention or not, but and I think because there were more players from all over the world that were just kind of trying it out, and just by playing solid, I've been able to do pretty well there. But yeah, on WSOP.com, you're right. It's that level of player is.
It's imperceptible too when you're playing poker, right? When you just get owned playing poker, it's hard to know sometimes if you got unlucky, if you played it bad, if it was just going to happen like that. And that's why you really never know what's going on in poker. If you just look at one tournament, if you have to look at thousands and probably tens of thousands of tournaments to find out, what is skill and what is luck. But yeah, to that one thing that when you're playing on WSOP.com, yes, some of the best players in the world are playing on WSOP.com, especially during the big events. And then on your poker subscription, some of the worst players in the world are playing on there, because if they were the best players in the world, they'd be playing elsewhere and not on the subscription thing. So you're seeing, oh, wow, it turns out there is a difference in this game of skill, that I'm somewhere between these people and these people, which is where most of us are. But yeah, I mean, that's just how it's going to work out.
And for those that are like, oh, it's just luck, it's all luck. I mean, then why do the same people seem to always finish at the top and do well. So it's definitely this game of skill. And I didn't realize, the depth of trying to solve these poker equations and problems are.
Yeah, no, there's a lot to it.
How are you as a poker player? Because I mean,
terrible.
Even though you've seen thousands of hours and did commentary for thousands of hours,
I don't. My ability to apply those principles is not great in my own situation, mostly because I don't have the disregard for the money that most people have to be good at the game. So if you're playing me in poker, Paul, and you know that I really care about the money, there are mistakes you can get me to make because I'm not treating the money as a tool. I'm treating it as money. And so even though I have a lot of poker knowledge, my ability to apply it isn't great because I still am timid about the money, A, and B, when I beat people at poker, I feel bad.
All right.
And so if I don't have the drive to win and I actually really care about losing, the sweet spot for playing poker for me is a difficult one to find. Because what am I really doing there if I don't want to win and I really hate losing and it really bugs me to lose? So my sweet spot is to play poker as a social game, to go play $1, $2 with friends, have a bunch of beers, mess around, win or lose. The money doesn't really mean anything. I don't feel bad about winning. I still feel a little bad about losing, but not that bad, especially if I've had a good time and a night out. So for me, that's what poker is always going to be. And the times when I do sometimes get a little jealous when I see people winning big money and going deep in poker tournaments. And so every once in a while, I'll take a crack at a poker tournament. I'm talking like at most like $1,000 buy-in. I just played one in London. That was an 1,100 pound buy-in. So that one's a little bit more, $1,500. But like I was shaking. I was shaking playing for a $1,500 poker tournament. So that's about it for me. That's about all I can handle. And so, and I'm notoriously, in addition to all of that, insanely, famously unlucky at poker.
Okay.
People call it, when something unlucky happens in my home game, people say, "Oh, that was very Stapletonian," which has happened. It's named after me.
Right. Right.
So between those things, like I'm just not a good player, long and the short of it, but I do have a lot of fun splashing around in there.
That's wonderful. And do you think people play you differently because of who you are?
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. They know that I'm probably a little bit intimidated, and they also, and this is something that works out if you're a lucky poker player or just a not unlucky poker player, is they want to just play pots with me because it's fun. Oh, I want to play a pot against Stapes. Like imagine, you're at Commerce Casino or the Deer, whatever, you've played casino before. I don't know where it is, right? And like John Hamm's at the table. You're like, I got to play a hand with John Hamm. Not to say that I'm John Hamm, but people are like, oh, I got to play a pot with Stapes. And so I get aces cracked by like a lot of 8-3s and Jack 4s. And, in the long run, statistically, my aces will win and I'll eventually end up winning money against people who play those hands against me. But in the short term, which means is because I don't play a lot of poker, I've lost, a lot of money to people playing those hands because they want to goof around and play with me. So yes, they do play a little bit differently against me also.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I know exactly what you're saying about, because I, for the 10, 12 years that I've been here in Vegas, my goal was like, when I moved to LA, I'm going to golf every day. I'm going to become great at golf. My goal was the same thing. I'm going to play poker every day. I'm going to become great. That doesn't happen because you get busy. It's very time consuming. And I think the biggest tournament I've ever come out of pocket was in LA, like at the Bike or Commerce or one of those. And it was for like $350. And even that, I was kind of like, It's a lot of money, and luckily I made like $100. I got back 450. And I finished right on the bubble, 13th place. Yeah. So I got I made $100, but it was like, so now that I have a few entries that are worth like 1,100, but I won them because I paid $50 a month for this app or for this subscription. Now I'm okay because if I don't use it, I lose it, but I'm not coming out of pocket $1,100. So I don't know what it's going to be like to play. The biggest one was at the last World Series of Poker where it was for $888 that I won through the app again the first month that I was on there. So I was like, oh, this is going to be easy, $50 a month. But, it hasn't been that easy. But, but I would have never come out of pocket $888 to play. So it was a great experience. And I'm looking forward to, the Venetian where they have an $1,100 buy-in. Or I'm also seeing if I can just buy into smaller ones that are $200 or $300 with the money from the subscription. So I'm kind of the same way. But that's why I like tournaments, because I know here's the money.
Yeah.
I did the buy-in as opposed to playing cash games, which I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, so no, of course. And that's why a lot of people do prefer tournaments. It's a set price, right? Although most tournaments now have multiple reentries, so you're not really sure what the set price is. But let's say it's in a perfect world, it is a single entry, a freeze out, as we like to call it. It's a set price. Here's my issue. And I guess because you satellited in, via your subscription service or whatever, maybe you don't have the same feeling. But for me, even if it's a one buy-in, and even if, let's say I haven't paid a dime to get in, I still don't want to go broke in level one.
Right.
So when I have pocket tens in level one and I raise and someone re-raise and I'm supposed to move all in with my pocket tens, sometimes I don't because I'm afraid to be done in the first level. And even though I didn't spend $1,100 to get in, my chance at winning $1,800 if I'm in cash is gone if I'm done with this hand. And I came all the way down here and I drove all the way this thing, and I'm probably not going to get another chance to play for another couple months. And, that's a mistake. You can't, you need to. So one thing I would say to you that I need to learn for a bit of myself, you said you just keep going out like on the bubble or just before the bubble or whatever. So part of what good poker players do is they play more aggressive early on. So when they get to the bubble, they're either out of the tournament or they have a lot of chips. So they don't have to worry on the bubble. They don't have to go out on the bubble. And one thing that I never do is I never go broke in a poker tournament in level 1, 2, or 3, but I go broke in a poker tournament right before the money every time. And to be honest, I should be going out the poker tournament in level 1, 2, or 3 sometimes.
Right. Because now when you get there to the money, you don't have enough ammunition to finish in the money. That's I think I'm kind of in that same boat where I will play more hands early on. I'll go
we all do.
Okay. Yeah. And but then the money's coming up and it's almost 50-50. Some of them, but then it's like, oh man, I min cashed, which is great. At least I got my money back and made a little bit, or I lost it, so it's like, I shouldn't be in that situation. So I'm trying to figure it out.
That finishing in like the top, 20%, but not making the top 12 for the cash is like really frustrating. And we all go through it. That really is the most important step, is to figure out, well, how do I make it so that when, we're 10 from the money, I don't have 8 big blinds. And that generally comes from accumulating more chips sooner, which often means it's not so much the play of that we make that's bad when we go out of the tournament. It's the rest of the tournament where we didn't play well enough.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Do you do people invite you to tournaments where they pay for your buy-in as a celebrity, as a poker celebrity and things like that? And do you take advantage of that?
Every once in a while. Yeah. Every once in a while I try to take advantage of it as much as I can, because not only is it, more or less free money if I could ever cash, which I haven't, by the way, and all the times it's ever been offered to me, I've never once made a nickel off of it. But it's also good for me to be on the scene, and people like to hang out with me and like to keep my sort of my image alive and well as being somebody that's fun to hang out with. And when I go on work trips and I'm doing commentary, I don't get to hang out with anybody. I don't get to see anybody. We work from about 10 a.m. to at least 10 p.m. most nights. So it's not like I can go out and really socialize afterwards. So it's cool to be able to go to other events where I'm not working and do my hanging out with people that way.
Wow, wonderful. Yeah, thank you for sharing all that. And you said Poker Stars, that was your first. How did they find you then? I can't remember if we actually.
I've been doing podcasts basically. My first job in poker was a tournament reporter, and then my second job in poker was a little video producer for Card Player Magazine, and then my third job in poker, I was hosting a podcast that was more or less sponsored by Full Tilt, and from that moment forward, people in the poker world really just were super cool to me and loved everything I did, and were really generous with their time and their compliments. And so when Poker Stars was doing this new show called The Big Game in 2009, Daniel Negreanu was a fan. He and Barry Greenstein and a guy named John Caldwell, who all worked at Poker Stars at the time, were all big Joe Stapleton fans. And they said, look, if you want to have the best poker show on TV, we think this is your guy. We think this is the guy that can actually make poker fun and funny. And they took a shot on me, and it ended up working out for everybody.
Wonderful. How'd you come up with My Babies?
Do you know what? So there was a writer on MADtv named Stephen Craig.
Sure.
And I just looked up to him so much. I just thought he was the funniest guy and really loved his sketches. And he did a one-man show called I Am Not Mark Twain. And every once in a while he'd be one of these, and he was dressed as Mark Twain and doing this Mark Twain impression for the whole show. And he'd be like, well, let me tell you something, my babies. And he would say my babies every once in a while throughout the course of the show. Well, that's not how things went down, my babies. And I, as a joke, was doing a rehearsal for a podcast, for a poker podcast. And they're like, and go, you're live. And I go, hello, my babies, as a joke. And then they let me leave rehearsal because they had what they needed from me. And they had the two sound guys sit in the host chair to keep doing tests. And they kept going, hello, my babies, hello, my babies, hello, my babies, and making fun of me for saying hello, my babies. And then the next show, I did it for real then to make fun of them making fun of me. And then it just stuck. So, and then Chris D'Elia started doing it, which kind of was annoying. I mean, I don't think he stole it from me or anything, but people be like, oh, you and Chris D'Elia say the same thing. And I'm like, we don't need to get into this, but I'm pretty sure I can dig up evidence of me doing it as early as 2012 or 2013.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And who do you think came up with the facial hair then first, you or Chris?
Chris seems like the kind of guy that would have looked like that since he was like 11 or 12 years old. Yeah, so yeah, probably him.
Yeah. And it's I mean, I know beards are in and whatnot, but yours has always been kind of like this 5 o'clock shadow. And is that something that you had to run through by the producers, or you just showed up unshaven and they were like, yeah, perfect?
That's a really good question. So I've always had this because I moved to LA when I was only 20 and I needed to look older. So I wanted, I didn't want people to know I was 20 years old. I had to show a fake ID to get into the premiere party for MADtv the first year we got there. So I always had the beard to look older. And then what happened was when I got considered for the big game, there was talk of me. I auditioned for a show on ESPN and they told me that I was going to have to shave if I got the job. Then I ended up getting a job on the big game and they were like, oh, we're not sure how we feel about the beard. It's sports. You don't really have beards and, sportscasters don't really have beards. And I was able to sell them on the fact that I was already a personality in the poker world and this was my established look. And then after that, I did end up getting that ESPN job a year later, and I was able to sell to them the same story. Hey, I know you don't do beards on ESPN, but this is my established look. And then that shows never end up airing on ESPN anyway because Black Friday happened before they could air. So, but yeah, the beard is luckily now I don't have to sell it as part of my established look anymore. It is my established look. Nobody really fucks with me. Just occasionally they're like, do you think you could take it down a little bit? But here's my trick, Paul. I only trim my beard in hotel bathrooms.
Smart.
I just don't want to clean that shit up. I'm a good tipper. I'll leave a nice tip either way, but I don't want to deal with the drains and everything. No, it's fine. I'm going to wait till I'm saving this beard for Monte Carlo on Sunday.
Yeah. I mean, that's where I do all my grooming, top and bottom. So
Monte Carlo, you haven't lived till you have trimmed your balls on the French Riviera.
Yeah, I didn't mean Monte Carlo. I just meant a hotel room in general. That's where I do my maintenance. But I would love to visit Monte Carlo and trim my balls on the French Riviera. You've not lived, I would imagine. That is so exciting. Are you going by yourself? Do you need somebody to go with you? You let me know if you do.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for the offer. I feel like my girlfriend would probably be my first choice, and then her girlfriend would be my second choice. But like your top 8, maybe?
You know what? From all the people that you know, of all the celebrities, I want to say thank you because I feel like we're back on Facebook, so I'm in your top 8.
I would like to see you smoking a cigar in the Côte d'Azur.
Oh, I would love nothing more. I'll bring all the cigars for all the fellas and the ladies, of course. Well, wonderful, Joe. What else would you like to touch on? I don't know how long you want to go.
What time we got? I don't even know what time it is.
Almost 1 p.m. Pacific.
Okay,
you're in LA, right?
Yeah, I did not budget for more than 90 minutes for this, so I gotta go.
This is
when we hit.
Perfect.
I don't know if you have a spiel you got to do.
No, I just want to say thank you, Joe, for taking time out of your busy day. I'm glad you got to kind of, also connect with Chris Kloos, and thank you for popping into that show. And most importantly, thank you for being here, and everyone in the audience. Thank you guys for being here and for participating and listening. And I'll send you the link, Joe, and you can reshare it if you're so inclined. But that's the most. It's great to always chat with you, and I can't wait to work with you either here in Vegas or in the poker world or in the comedy world. And thank you for bringing up these great memories, Joe. Thank you.
Of course, Paul. Thanks for having me, man. It was a blast.
Thank you. All right. Well, that's I'll invite the Waitbot up. And Joe, thank you, and safe travels. And I'll probably talk to you before you go to Monte Carlo and shave your balls. So thank you for doing the show.
Either way, buddy. See you in Vegas soon.
Ese hombre holding up the bottle. Look a little closer, cigar and Moscato. An actor in improv coming from Chicago. Outdoor, make way for Paul Vato.